In Las Vegas, Nevada, at this moment, they are deciding who just could be the next Republican nominee for President of the United States. Only 5 men remain, and already there are those saying that one guy has it all locked up. We got a long way to go. Welcome in, everybody. I'm Ed Berliner. Welcome to this special Newsmax presentation, the 2016 Nevada GOP Caucus. Remember, this is not a primary. This is a caucus. And already, before we get started, let's bring up a point here. We're hearing from certain people already on Twitter, various forms of social media when it comes down to the caucus itself. For instance, here is Janie Valencia, who is and I got to get this right, an associate polling editor at the Huffington Post, who says, as we expected, Nevada caucus is disorganized and chaotic. Here's another one. If Hillary wins the Nevada Republican caucus, we might have reason to be suspicious. Because quite frankly, what's happening here is it is indeed just that. It is chaotic in Nevada. They are just getting started. We have a long way to go. Let's go ahead and bring in the panel and get started. First up, he is host of the show here on Newsmax weekdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time that never needed to think for a second about a name, as he's been rocking the conservative airwaves for many years. An old friend who knows all about pregame shows. Steve Malzberg joins us. Also, the former Democratic senatorial aide and now contributor at The Hill. Joining us on the hard line, he is only now learning to come out of his opinionating shell. We're working on it every single day here, Brent Budowsky. And rounding out with the veteran political strategist and author who knows more about what happens inside the Beltway than the people who live there, Dick Morris. Gentlemen, thank you so much for getting us started. Steve, I'm going to go ahead and begin with you because, look, you've been a part of these political races for a long time. We've covered it. News has looked at it. When we hear already that we're not even really at even close to closing out the caucuses, and we hear the words disorganized and chaotic, didn't we kind of know this was going to happen in Nevada a couple of days ago? We knew it was going to be this way.
Well, we're hearing it from, you quoted a Huffington Post person. I think they might have an axe to grind. So I don't know how much confidence I would have in the description of a Republican caucus from the Huffington Post, the publication that decided they would put Donald Trump only on their kind of buffoonery pages and not cover him as a legitimate news story.
Well, so okay, then here, let me go ahead and put this in here then, Steve. Here's Emily Kahn, the political reporter for Mashable, and again, not exactly what you would consider to be one of the top video or the top news sites. Quote, man here says it's a disaster. No one checking in or checking IDs. They're handing out ballots willy-nilly. Some guy voted Trump twice. It's going to be a long night, Steve.
Well, it sounds like a Democrat. It sounds like what the Democrats want to happen in the general elections and in elections all over the country. So I don't know what the problem is. Look, I think everybody expects when it's all is said and done, Donald Trump will emerge victorious, and he will go from there. And, you know, the game for second place will be what everybody really will have their eye on, and that is Rubio and Cruz, of course. And what that actually means or will mean in the long run, no one really knows, but I venture to say not really that much.
All right, Dick Morris, let's go ahead and bring you in here. The Washington Post today. Donald Trump is on course to win all the delegates, 1,237, that he needs to be the GOP nominee. That seems to be a consensus from a lot of people, but we're still hearing that word inevitable. Do you agree with all this?
Well, I think that Trump is going to win tonight, and it's very convincing. You know, he won in the Midwest. He won in the Northeast, in New Hampshire. He won in the Southeast in South Carolina. And now the question is, can he win in the West in Nevada? And it looks like he can. Going into Super Tuesday, when a dozen states vote, he is ahead in 11 of the 12. The only one he's behind in is the biggest of them, which is Texas, which, of course, is Ted Cruz's native land. So Trump seems poised not only to win Nevada, but to do very well in all of the states coming up on Super Tuesday. The real question everyone's asking is what Steve said, who comes in second? And because the theory is that if one candidate dominates in second place on Super Tuesday, the other one will de facto have withdrawn, and all of the votes will then be a two-way contest, and that Trump, while he can win a plurality, cannot win a majority. And the importance of Nevada tonight is that it sort of sets up the plate for Super Tuesday and creates expectations for what's going to happen then. Now, I personally believe that if Rubio finishes third, most of his votes would go to Cruz in a two-way race. But I believe that if Cruz finishes third, most of his votes will go to Trump, not to Rubio.
Why?
Because the fault line that runs through the party is the establishment against the anti-establishment. And the establishment is guys like Rubio and Bush and Christie and Walker. The anti-establishment is Trump and Cruz and Carson. And I believe that the Trump and the Cruz voters have a lot more in common than the Cruz and the Rubio voters do. So I believe that if Rubio finishes second tonight and on Super Tuesday, Trump is going to be the nominee. I think that if Cruz passes Rubio and finishes second, then I think it's going to be a tough fight between Trump and Cruz.
Brent, let's go ahead and bring you in here from the left side of things. And again, as noted always, it's very difficult to get an opinion out of you these days. I understand that very frankly. But let's go ahead and look from your side of things. Donald Trump is likely going to be the winner here. Donald Trump is still polling very well. The American public, Republicans, still want Donald Trump. And you said before that you don't fear Donald Trump. You still hold to that?
Oh, yeah. As a Democrat, my greatest prayer would be that the Republicans nominate Donald Trump. The only prediction I'm going to make right now is that Bernie Sanders does not win the Republican caucus in Nevada. I think that's a safe bet. I think Trump will probably win, but I think when you look at the totality of the Republican electorate, well over half do not want Trump. Now, I'm not as quick to say as Dick Morris is that the Cruz supporters will end up going to Trump as opposed to Rubio. Donald Trump has spent the last 2-3 weeks accusing Cruz of being mentally disturbed, a liar, and a bad Christian. Now, if I were a Cruz supporter, heaven forbid, I wouldn't take all that kindly to Mr. Trump's attacks on Cruz. What is happening now, as we speak, is that not the establishment, but all of those Republicans that don't want Trump or Cruz are gravitating to Rubio. He's starting to get endorsements. I predict there will be news of a major fundraising surge sometime in the next 3 to 7 days. I think more likely than not, the final breakdown will be Rubio versus Trump. And I wouldn't bet on Trump that casually. I think the media way overstates the certainty of Trump's nomination. He is the front runner. He is ahead. But he didn't even have 100 delegates. And I think when you get past March 1st into March 15th, and we get to the big states, and Rubio has a cleaner shot at Trump, I believe that he will do better than people think right now. I'm not predicting who gets nominated. I think it's unpredictable. But I think it's wrong to casually assume that Donald Trump's going to get it. And I think it's wrong to casually assume that Cruz supporters will go to the guy, Trump, who's been calling their candidate mentally disturbed, a liar, a crook, and a bad Christian.
Okay, let me go ahead and bring Steve back in here. Steve, again, let's kind of catch up on a lot of things here because we do have to. The overstating of the nomination that Brent was talking about. Also, I wanted to get your take as well on what Dick Morris said, that the Rubio votes may go to Cruz and the Cruz votes then may go to Donald Trump. Your take?
Yeah, well, I think Dick makes a great point. It's just a question of who's getting out of the race. I mean, I just don't see Cruz getting out of the race at any point. I think Cruz is in this to the end. Rubio, I think, if Rubio falters, if Rubio comes in a distant third tonight and has trouble going forward on Super Tuesday, he could go. But like Dick also said, and as Brent predicted, he's the establishment, quote unquote, candidate. He's getting a lot of Jeb's supporters, a lot of Jeb's money. So I don't think he's going anywhere either. I don't think it's going to come down to a two-man race. I think it's going to stay a three-man race for most of the way. And, I just don't see, what Brent brings up, he's been criticizing Cruz, calling him this, calling him that. Nobody cares, Brent. Trump could say and do anything, and nobody cares. It doesn't alienate anybody against Trump.
Well, I disagree with that. I think that from Cruz's supporters' point of view, they're not going to take kindly to Trump calling their candidate mentally disturbed, not an American citizen, not eligible to run for president, a liar, a crook, and a bad Christian who deserves to be indicted for mailings in Iowa. I don't think it's that easy to say, oh, they'll go support the guy that said that. That's not me making those accusations. That's me quoting Donald Trump attacking Cruz.
Okay, hang tight just 1 second here, Brent. Hang on 1 second.
Anywhere.
Hang on, I hear Dick Morris in the back. Go ahead, Dick.
Yeah. When you look at the polling and you ask Trump voters who's your second choice, 60+% say Cruz. And I take them at their word. I don't think that the ad hominem rivalry between Cruz and Trump is going to affect him much at all. The way you have to look at it is there was a group called the Establishment Republican Party. And over the course of the last 5 or 7 years, two groups left it, the evangelicals and the Tea Party. One ecclesiastic, the other secular. And those groups are organized groups, and they have endorsed Cruz. There are still a lot of people in the Republican Party that hate the Republican leadership, that feel they're mamby-pamby, they cave in every chance they get, they don't really stand for anything. And those folks, largely downscale voters, are rallying to Trump. But the thing that they have in common with the Tea Party and the evangelicals is that they left the mainstream of the Republican Party, in the same sense the Sanders voters have left the mainstream of the Democratic Party. There are more Republicans left than Democrats. And I think that therefore, if Cruz does finish third, and I'm not sure he will, he could well finish a strong second, not just in Nevada, but on Super Tuesday. Number one, the biggest Super Tuesday state is Texas, where he comes from, where it's a huge advantage. And I think that if the Cruz votes figure that Cruz can't win, no matter what score, but figure he can't win, I think that they will go to Trump. And that puts Rubio in a very difficult position. The more he attacks Cruz, the more he creates votes for Trump.
Dick, let me go ahead and interrupt you here 1 second, because I just wanted to get this in. We're talking about candidates criticizing each other. Just a few moments ago, Donald Trump tweeted out, and we know how much he abhors Twitter and never uses it, quote, "Make sure you get on the Trump line and are not misled by Cruz people. They are bad. Be careful." So Donald Trump continues to run whatever he can and just go ahead and make Ted Cruz look as bad as he can. Look, guys, before we leave, and because Brent is here, I want to get this in here, because the town hall is also being held alongside this. CNN is conducting a town hall tonight, the Democratic side of things. And this was an interesting thing that we pulled out of it. I wanted to get everybody's opinion. I got about 2 minutes left. Bernie Sanders said that President Obama has faced more obstruction from Republicans than any other president. Then he brought up the birther issues for the president. And then Bernie Sanders said this.
This is on top of this birther issue, which we heard from Donald Trump and others, a racist effort to try to delegitimize the President of the United States. My dad, as I mentioned, came from Poland. I'm running for president. Guess what? Nobody has asked for my birth certificate. Maybe it's the color of my skin. I don't know.
Bernie Sanders playing the birther card and the race card. 30 seconds to you, Brent. Your comments on what Bernie Sanders said.
Well, I'm not going to get into the race issue, but what I will say is he is right that from the minute that Barack Obama was inaugurated, even before he was inaugurated, there was a concerted Republican plan, including Mitch McConnell and Senate Republicans, to delegitimize his presidency. That's absolutely true. And I'll say this in 30 seconds. If they do the same thing in the Supreme Court nomination and won't meet with, talk to, or consider a Democratic nominee, they're making a huge, huge mistake, because they're repeating that pattern of obstruction.
All right, 30 seconds to you, Dick Morris. Your response as well.
Well, I think that the majority of the country buys the idea that with an election coming up, you shouldn't have a divisive fight in the Senate. You should let the voters decide who should be on the Supreme Court. And even if they don't, I think that it will not be an issue against the Republicans. I also do not buy the assertion that the birther issue was a racist scheme. Obama did not release his birth information for year after year after year, almost taunting the Republicans to keep raising it. And I think it was a legitimate inquiry, and I think it's a legitimate issue.
All right, I'm almost out of time here. Steve, 20 seconds to you.
If Bernie Sanders wants to win this nomination, he should shut the heck up about what he's talking about and go after Hillary, her honesty, her integrity, what the judge ruled today, her lying about a sniper fire in Bosnia, her saying, I try to tell the truth to the American people. There's a litany of things he doesn't touch because he doesn't want to win. And as far as presidents, Bill Clinton was impeached. Barack Obama has not been impeached because, in part, he is black.
All right, hang tight, guys. Dick Morris, want to thank you so much for joining us. We're going to say goodbye to him. Steve Malzberg and Brent Budowsky will rise again on this special pregame show. This is our coverage of the 2016 Nevada Caucus, live here on Newsmax. Stay tuned.